In today's episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief, we sit down with Dan from Dan and Chris Games to talk all about his new game, well, I guess not game, expansion that is currently on Kickstarter, Tavern Masters, Dockside Expansion, and Soundtrack. So the game all about running your own tavern. It sounds pretty cool and exciting, so hang on until after Kickstarter Corner to find out all about Dan and his love of games and making that great expansion, I guess. This episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief is proudly being powered by TradeWarz, a game of kings. The Game of Kings is a 5X empire building game in resource management, strategy, and military might, where you zealously need to rule. Do you know what a 5X game is? Had you ever heard that before? I hadn't. So if you want to find out more about a 5X game, definitely go back and listen to my interview in which I sat down with the creators of this great game in episode 185, Wishlist Wednesday on Saturday, TradeWarz, a Game of Kings. We'll wait for you. Thanks. Glad you were able to go back and listen to that. This episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief is also proudly being powered by the creators and masterminds, or I guess the game, of Stupid Users Beta. Beta is a unique, fast-paced, ever-changing item looting, army building card game based on the comic that the creator created before creating the game. It's a great game. The Leafs will hopefully be able to bring a preview to you about this great game. But if you want to find out more before that preview comes to you, make sure you go back and listen to our episode in which we sat down with the creators of Stupid User Beta, and you can find all about it and what they are doing and what they did. In episode 182, Wishlist Wednesday, on Friday, Stupid Users Beta card game.
Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf, the podcast in which one man strives to level up his geekhood and helping you do the same, one battle at a time. Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
Quick reminder to hang on until after Kickstarter Corner to find out all about a game in which you run your own tavern.
What is this place? What is it doing here in the Leafs computer? Oh, it's Kickstarter Corner with the Leafs.
Yes, once again, I'll never tire of her singing about that. I love it. But you know what I also love? A game called Crazier. And there's one on Kickstarter currently. Well, it's almost done, so depending on when you're listening to this, their Kickstarter may be over, it may not, depending on how early you like to listen. But Crazier 1001 Nights is a gateway fantasy card game. It's like Uno with abilities, and we really loved it. And this project wraps up this Thursday, well, today, I guess, when you're listening, depending on what time you're listening, at 11 p.m., So yeah, you still have a little while to back on that. So definitely check out Crazier 1001 Nights. The Leafs loved it, and you can check out what we thought about it in our last Family Fun Day Friday episode, which is pinned to the top of our Facebook page, Getting Geeky with Game Relief. Now, the next one that we're talking about is actually Battle Bosses. Battle Bosses is a multiplayer miniature battle arena game for 2 to 6 players where each player controls an epic boss and their minions. Now, I do admit I was a little worried. Yeah, I was worried that it wasn't going to fund because the last time we recorded and let you know what was going on, it was only about $20,000 out of a $45,000 goal reached. And so I was worried it wasn't going to get there. But they had a few distributors and retailers that wanted to buy in. And so they convinced them to jump in the Kickstarter to help them get it towards success. So that was super exciting. And then a few backers had messaged them, seeing if they could create a high-end level that would allow them to help work on and create a boss with them. So that's why it's doing so well. And so now we're just hoping we can get to stretch goals, because right now we're, at the time of recording at least, with 69 hours to go, we're a little bit shy of $1,000. We're at $923 away from the goal of $45,000. So definitely check out battle bosses, and let me see if I can tell you what that higher tier is in which you can help create a boss. Well, I guess they're all gone now. Yeah, so there was only 4, and they got create your own boss. Those got bought up really quickly. So definitely check out battle bosses that's currently on the Kickstarter from Kesco. Oh, for battle bosses, reminder, this ends Friday, September 14th, so tomorrow at noon Mountain Standard Time. Did you ever play Truth or Dare as a kid? I know I did. And now you can play that with your own teenagers in a strategic party game. Players perform challenges to earn badonkadors. The most money after 60 to 90 minutes wins. This is coming to you from Jackwagon. As a family-friendly podcast, the option we can get behind is option number 1, their family-friendly way to play. Play with the green challenge deck only by removing the jacked up cards and excluding the Jackwagon deck. Our family-friendly version, acceptable for teens ages 13 to adult. So definitely check out Jackwagon's a strategic party game for people. So definitely check that out from Jackwagon. Next, do you like music? Do you like hip-hop? How about Rap Godz, the hip-hop strategy and storytelling board game? Be the next rap god, build your rap skills, money, street cred, and start beef with other rappers to get the most record sell plaques. Hip hop for your tabletop. There's still 10 days to go to get on this project, so about a week to go, as this ends Friday the 21st of September. So something quite different from rap music are dragons, I think at least. I've never heard them sing about dragons. But do you like dragons? Do you like Meeples? Why not try Dreeples, Dragon Meeples, and TradeWarz Relaunch that's currently on the Kickstarters. Awesome game upgrades with an explosive board game option. That's right, you heard me right. Dreeples. You can put these on any game from Monopoly to Ticket to Ride, anything. You can use them on Small World. You can even put them in a cage with parrots, so they have dragons to look at. Well, I wouldn't recommend that, but it shows on the Kickstarter page. And if that's not far enough for you to go, you want a game to go with it, check out Dreeple Wars. The war before the Meeple War. The game. It's only $51 and you get a set of Dreeples included with this. So definitely check out Dreeples, Dragon Meeples, and TradeWarz Relaunch, currently on the Kickstarters for another 2 weeks. Well, a little bit less than 2 weeks when you're hearing this, as it goes through Tuesday, the 25th of September. And then on another completely different genre besides dragons, because I've never heard of dragons in space, have you? If you've read a book or played a game with dragons in space, I would love to hear about it. Well, the next one we're talking about is No Escape. Michael Wright from the Unfiltered Gamer said, "It's a never-ending hallway of disaster is waiting for you. I really like this game." But in No Escape, it's a competitive maze-building take-that game for 2 to 8 players. Only one of you will escape. Will it be you? Well, to find out, go ahead and back No Escape on the Kickstarters currently. You've got a little bit less than, about 2 weeks to go to back this. So this project goes through Thursday, the 27th of September. So definitely check out No Escape on the Kickstarters currently. Last but not least is Congress, the board game. It's a board game inspired by American politics. And it is not your regular politics game. You're actually making bills and adding amendments and all kinds of stuff instead of getting the politics and fighting that way. No one has ever left according to the creators, when they've play tested and been at cons and whatnot, no one has ever left the table or flipped the table or gone away angry. So you might want to check out Congress, the board game. Hey, did you listen to episode 187, which was just aired yesterday? Wishlist Wednesday, the Congress, the board game? Well, if you didn't, go back and listen to that so you can find out how great Congress, the board game is. Plus, we give a little bit of tips and find out a little bit about the qualms and the troubles that come with advertising for your game. Now, let's find out how to run our own tavern as we sit down with the creator and mastermind behind Tavern Masters, Dockside Expansion, and soundtrack.
Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
Ahoy there, landlubbers. I hear you've been wanting some rum for your tavern. Maybe a few sailors and some seafaring types to boot. Well, I can get them for you. But first, we're gonna need a few things. Like we'll need some more art. And a whole lot of paper. And plenty of this. And we're gonna need some time. No, not that kind of time. Now these goods, they won't be ready till early next year. So in the meantime, you can just keep having fun playing Tavern Masters with your friends. Now if you don't have Tavern Masters yet, don't be afeared. Just go down to your local hobby game store and pick up a copy with the expansions. Or you can go online to our web store where we've got our special set sail sale. Don't forget some metal coins too. Help us steer this ship into shore and get some great swag to boot. Better hurry though, this campaign only lasts for 1 month. So, just like the pirate whose treasure map has just been discovered, it's time to move your booty.
Did that sound familiar to you guys? It didn't to me neither, but this is the story of Tavern Masters, Dockside Expansion, and soundtrack. And tonight we're lucky enough to have on the creator mastermind behind this great game, Dan. Is that correct, Dan? Is that how you fall in line with Tavern Masters, Dockside Expansion, and soundtrack?
Yes, that's right. It's my new expansion for my game, Tavern Masters, and the soundtrack to go along.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us on Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf. We really appreciate it. Now, before we get into that and everything that it is, let's rewind a little bit if we could. We don't have to go back too terribly far, but of course, unless you were born into the tabletop gaming world or whatnot. But how did you get started into playing tabletop board games and whatnot, Dan?
Well, I started at a young age. Of course, playing all the standard stuff with my family, Monopoly, Scrabble. But a game called Fireball Island back in the early 80s really opened my eyes to what board games could really be, and got me very excited. Of course, as I grew older, when I was around 13 or 14, the Magic craze hit, so I started playing Magic the Gathering, and I've always loved gaming and tabletop games. I've been role playing since I was around 12, and so I've just always really enjoyed games of all kinds. They're fun ways to explore new worlds and new ideas.
Awesome. A lot of people I talk to they get into like Magic or something like that, or role playing or just board games, and then they have a hiatus and come back to them. Did anything like that ever happen to you, Dan?
Well, there's certainly been times when it's harder to get a game on the table, but I've luckily pretty consistently been able to enjoy tabletop gaming my whole life. From lots of role-playing games when I was a kid to, all the way up to campaigns that have been going for, 10, 12 plus years now.
Oh, wow. So there you go. And when did you get into what hobby tabletop gaming is? Was there something that transitioned you over? Was it Magic or something else?
Well, as a regular of like our local comic store, I'd always see new games come out, and whenever I had enough money to get one or knew someone that had picked one up, we always tried to give it a whirl. And there's been, interesting stuff coming out for past couple of decades now, at least, for sure, and it wasn't just Magic card game I got into back in the day. There was Illuminati, Jihad, a bunch of other card games at the time that, it was really exploding the whole CCG market.
Okay, yeah, wow. And I just recently, I'm talking of that. I haven't looked too far into it, but I recently saw a video about a CCG of Transformers.
Wow.
So that's kind of intriguing. I like Transformers, but the whole CCG thing, they kind of is not good for our family because we want to catch them all, like they say.
It's sometimes it seems like a bit of a money grab.
For sure. Awesome. Now, besides Tavern Masters or any of your games, because it sounds like this might not be your first rodeo, besides any of your games, do you have a current favorite that you like to play a lot?
I'm always liking to try new things. Sadly, I don't get to play a whole lot of other people's games because usually when I can manage to get a game on the table, it's to do some play testing for one of the ones we've been working on. But I do frequently enjoy playing Bonanza, the bean farming game. It's just a fun little Euro card game. I played a game recently called Dice Town that I really enjoyed. I liked some of the fun mechanics of that, utilizing Liar's Dice. And of course, there's some classics. I mean, I always loved playing Talisman. I've got 3rd edition and 4th revised. I've always been a fan of those. And the Arkham Horror type stuff is fun. That whole series from Fantasy Flight. Those are stuff that I definitely enjoy too. But it's not as easy to get some of them on the table for all the gamers, that are out there. Because sometimes it's just too much for someone to delve into, or, someone just might not want to have to, do that much, accounting, so to speak.
Yeah, I totally hear you. It's hard for us to get games on the table as well, but it sounds like you have more than just one favorite, though, so that's good.
Oh, yeah. It's hard to even categorize like a favorite game because I'd have to start breaking it down into categories and possibly even themes.
Word on the street is you have I guess not necessarily a new game, but an expansion and soundtrack on Kickstarter currently. What can you tell us about Tavern Masters, Dockside Expansion, and the soundtrack?
Well, Tavern Masters is a game where you're running a tavern in a fantasy village called Redstaff, and you're spending your day phases stocking your tavern with your gold so that at night when you get patrons in, they can come in and pay you if you have what they want. And sometimes if you manage to have the stuff they like, they'll stay around. And Dockside, adds in like a 4th drink type. See, in the base game, the 3 main drink types are ale, wine, and mead. With Dockside, you get the 4th main drink type, rum, and you get a bunch of new sailor patrons and a bunch of other seafaring types, plus a nice mix of the like mages and soldiers and thugs like from before. But all new, of course, for the expansion. And you also get the port deck, which has ship cards in it that come in. Each player that has a sailor in their tavern turns a port card each turn, and each ship that comes in, lets everyone play something for free if they have it. Generally speaking, that's the function of most ship cards. Whereas the song cards are something that you can play in your own tavern, and they can help you get access to cards you couldn't access before, or get some extra gold for stuff that you have stacked up in your tavern.
Okay, so you talk of your own tavern as well as a main tavern or whatnot. So how does the game look, or like how do you play the game?
Well, it's just your own tavern. There's no main tavern, quote unquote. Each player's running their own tavern, you see, and trying to keep their patrons happy and paying in gold.
So is it kind of like one of those, a lot of lately, there's been a big craze of it, or at least my kids like them, like where you're running one of those kitchens and you have to like keep everybody happy or whatnot, get their burgers to them in time or whatnot, but it's just a tavern and it's a card game instead of a app, I guess?
It's definitely kind of reminiscent of the old days, for those of you who, like me, are go back into the 80s and 90s. There was like an old game called like Hot Dog Stand or Lemonade Stand on the computer where, you're stocking up your stuff and then like the people are coming and buying what you got. In theme and essence, it's kind of like that. But, it's actually it's an engine builder. So each round that you're adding more to your tavern, that's more that your tavern can do, more patrons that you can make happy, and more gold you can earn. And so as you're building your tableau, you're giving yourself, more combos and increases in money in the gold, which is both your resource and your victory points. Because the game ends whenever any player has 20 or more gold, and then whoever has the most gold wins. So you it doubles as a resource and a victory condition.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of resource management. There's hand management.
So if we were to sit down to play it, what does somebody's turn look like on Tavern Masters?
Each round is played simultaneously. You play it in phases. So during the day phase, which is the first phase, everyone gets their 3 tavern cards, which is goods and staff that they can purchase and hire respectively. And those are the things that you put down in your tavern that you play with your gold that let you bring in patrons. So let's say you put down a rock bottom ale for 1 gold. That'll let you play a patron that wants ale. So during the day phase, everyone's buying the stuff from their hand that they want in play, and they're trading with each other because trading is encouraged in Tavern Masters. You can trade anything but patrons. So then the night phase rolls around and everyone draws 3 patrons, and then everyone's playing their patrons to their tavern and dealing with any effects that come up because of it and whatnot. And then everyone has the count the till phase where they're gaining gold from their patrons. 1 gold per patron, 2 gold for noble patrons, and then any extra gold they're getting from abilities. And then the round ends, they discard patrons. Like all the patrons get discarded, except like some patrons have something that they like they might like games or they might like food. And if you have those things in your tavern, they actually stay till the next round as well.
Okay. And is there any kind of take that mechanic, or it's just pretty much everybody building their own tableau and whoever does it the most strategically wins?
Well, in the base game, I kept it to where whether you're playing head-to-head or cooperatively or even solo, but when you're playing with other players, there's still no take that elements where you're doing something nasty to other players, just to kind of keep a convivial atmosphere, because not everyone likes take that mechanics, but I knew that some people did, and it could be a fresh change of pace too. So I made the Dockside Expansion at the same time as the base game. The Dirty Deeds expansion, I'm sorry. And the Dirty Deeds adds in the Dirty Deeds deck, which adds a phase in to where you're able to play Dirty Deed cards on other players. Like, if you have a thug in your tavern, you can drop a bag of rats in their back door, so they have to discard a card at random, a food at random from their tavern because the rats eat it, and that kind of adds in some of the take that. And there's also some fun new patrons and staff and goods in that expansion that, kind of add in more of that take that kind of element to the game.
Oh, okay. So there is that element in it as well. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like making games versatile so you can approach them a number of ways, experience them a number of ways, and then, be able to enjoy them, with different groups of people. Some people you play with might not like take that games, while others might only play PvP.
Well, there you go. They say, I've heard it said that no one game is going to please everybody. So it looks like you tried to go against that by making expansions or whatnot. So that's kind of cool.
Well, just like any good Euro, you gotta mitigate your luck and your chances, right?
For sure. Awesome. And you said the one with the most gold wins after somebody hits 20?
Right. Unless you're playing cooperatively or solo, in which case you pick like a number of rounds to play off of the challenge chart. So like if you want to play the light challenge level like Buzzed, you play for 6 rounds, and then as long as everyone has 20 gold, you all win. Whereas if you want to try really hard, you can go for the wasted level, which is only 2 rounds, and then everyone's got to have 20 gold at the end of 2 rounds, or else you lose.
Okay, and this is a family-friendly podcast. It is a family-friendly game as well. I want to say you talked about somebody as young as 6 playing the game.
Yes, my son Victor, when he was 6, used to sit and play with. I mean, he still plays with us today, but he's no longer 6. He's 9 now. But he used to play even when he was 6 years old. I mean, I do recommend the game 13 and up, just because it does talk about drinking, and 13-year-olds are more easy to understand that, just because people are drinking in a funny little fantasy game doesn't mean they should go out and do it, But that being said, the mechanics themselves are perfectly easy to understand, and there's no terrible content. There's no nudity. There's no using like any curse words or anything, or really anything that in general should be offensive to the average consumer. in regards to like, children playing. It's, as far as I've ever heard and have seen, it's a family friendly game.
Awesome. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, we like family friendly games. So that's awesome.
Just with the caveat that it is about, alcohol, ale and mead and wine and people drinking and stuff. So
yeah, with that caveat. So where'd the inspiration for this game come from, Dan?
First of all, it takes place in our world of Destiny, which is our fantasy setting. And so like we love making fantasy games, and they all take place in this world of Destiny. So it's a fun way to kind of explore it more by like picking out a certain area of thing that seems like it would be a fun thing to explore in like a card game or a board game or whatever. And this one in particular, I had some ideas for like a fun engine builder, and we were sitting around the table. I was sitting with what I call my war council, the DKG war council. That's my wife, Crystal, and our two friends, Eric and Phil, who, we game together all the time. And we were the ones that have just done so much of the play testing on all these different games I've been designing. And we were kicking around ideas for what would be fun themes. And Phil actually said, hey, what about running a tavern? And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. So we sat and we thought about all the fun stuff you'd see in a tavern. And I said about, like making the mechanics, work to fit that. And started putting it all together.
Oh, awesome. So when you were sitting there putting it together in the mechanics and whatnot, during play testing, I imagine that took a little bit of time. During the play testing, was there ever anything you had to scrap because it just wouldn't work for the game?
Oh, yeah, tons of things. This game has been through a lot of play testing, and so there have been a lot of different changes and whatnot. In the early on versions, we tested whether or not we should make it to where the goods stayed or where you used them up. And then we tested ideas like, whether you should have to have that good for each patron you play or whether it's okay to just have one for many. Lots of little things here and there. There's some other stuff that we've come up with that we haven't even been able to implement yet that we're looking forward to. Like I have an event deck floating around that was originally going to be part of our next expansion, the Innkeeper expansion, but we've taken it out of there because the Innkeeper expansion is already huge. It's already bigger than the base game and the expansion's in print. So, we've already developed a number of other expansions and expansion ideas as well, continuing in that vein. And so, to help, find new ways to keep enjoying Tavern Masters and to keep, experiencing it, in new and exciting different ways.
Awesome. So when it comes to Tavern Masters, what would you say the thing you're most proud about is when it comes to this, Dan?
I think I'm most proud about when I am at a convention or, I'm sitting with some people and someone's learning to play it for the first time. And there's that moment where they get it, where like all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, I understand what this game is about. Like they've heard the rules, they've learned the rules, and it's easy enough to learn. But then there's that moment when it all kind of clicks together and they're like, oh, I get it. This is awesome. And then they find such enjoyment in it. And whenever I hear about people that, have been playing it and just love playing it again and again with their groups of friends, their groups of gamers, like that is probably the most rewarding thing, like hands down, bar none, about Tavern Masters in general or in specific, and about making games in general.
Yeah, when somebody likes a game you made, you always want to, it's probably better to make a fun game that people like to play, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. Anytime I'm working on my games and I have a mechanic that can go one way or another, I look at it and I say, okay, so what direction is this going to be? What direction is the player going to have the most fun with this? Because sometimes you can make a game be, more brutal, and people do like that. But then sometimes you can make a game be like a little bit more accessible, make it, not so brutal, but it makes it more fun somehow, and so, I always try and err on the side of fun. Then again, sometimes having the brutal options is the fun part too, though. So, really, in the end, I try and err on the side of whatever I think would be most fun for the intended experience of the game.
Cool. And then do you go in and see what the public thinks, like with blind play tests, or how do you go dive further from there?
We do all of our alpha play tests, if you will, in house, and with people we know. And once it gets to the stage where we feel like we've got it, a good solid set of rules where we really feel like we've worked out all the kinks that we can find. Then we'll, kind of work up the newest, like most up-to-date prototype. And then we'll start talking to some other groups we know that are kind of our beta level testers, where we just send them the game and then they've got to read the rules and try and figure it out and see how it comes across. And then they'll find new things and new ways to, challenge the game or challenge its mechanics. And so, then I just, find ways to try and answer those situations or, determine if the game is heading in the direction that I'm intending it to. Because each one is, should be a handcrafted special experience for a gamer. Like I know that when you're playing one of my games, I want you to be feeling this type of thing or that type of thing. Like I want you to feel like you're, running a tavern, like you're standing behind the bar and those patrons that are coming in and you're serving the stuff they like. And, or in some of my other games, whatever you might be playing, I want you to have the kind of experience and I want the rules and the mechanics to match the feel of that experience.
Well, that makes sense. So, and then once you've done that and you kind of narrowed it down or whatnot, how do you know when your expansions or games are ready for the Kickstarters or just to be released in general, Dan?
Well, there's an old adage that says a thing is not complete when you can add nothing else, but when you can take nothing else away from it. And that is a pretty good rule of thumb. But really, I just try to look at it and I say, okay, well, does this have all the stuff that I want this experience to entail? And am I giving my customer enough product and enough good new exciting content to make it worth their time to get this expansion? That's always a big concern. I want to make sure that each expansion has enough stuff to really be interesting and be worth someone's time to check out. I don't just want extra fluff. I want something that, adds to their experience and maybe turns it on its head a little bit or whatever.
Well, for sure. That's good. And so are each of your expansions, you have to have the base game, I imagine, or any of them play by themselves or?
No, there's no standalones at the moment in the Tavern Masters world other than just, of course, the base game. Like in the Tavern Masters series, it will probably always be just a game that you build on with, and you choose the different expansions you want to use. I tried to make it easy to switch in and out the different expansions that require you to use the expansion to use the cards they're in. So on each of the cards that are from expansions, you'll generally see one or more colored gems along the left side, and those can be like the red gems. You only use those cards if you're using the Dirty Deeds expansion, because any card that has the red gem on it's going to be a card that, generally speaking, either goes with the Dirty Deeds expansion or specifically, is messing with other taverns. Whereas the Dockside adds the blue gem, because at that point you're adding in rum, which is a new drink type, and so you're also changing the balance of the patrons by adding in a bunch of sailors, and so I've always tried to maintain the balance between the numbers of, there's an equal number of each patron that wants a certain type of drink as far as the 3 base drinks. I had to do the same with the rum, and there's an equal number of like thugs and soldiers and mages, and so I had to do that with the sailors too, and so the Dockside kind of catched up with that. But if you're not wanting to use the Dockside stuff, then you just go through the deck and take out anything that has the blue gem, and makes it easier to switch back and forth between which expansions you're using.
Well, that sounds like a novel idea. That's awesome. So do you get a lot of crossover, like people that have the base game, a lot of fans keep coming back as you release more expansions?
Well, this is the first expansion that we've done separately from the base campaign. But I definitely see a lot of people coming back that are really excited. They've been, we ended up having to launch the campaign 2 months later than we intended. And, and really even before that, we'd intended to launch it much sooner, but, time makes fools of us all, right? But there've been a lot of people that have been really excited and looking forward to, seeing the campaign launch, and, they were right there when we got started to help kick it off. And so, we're going well, going strong, and, we should easily hit our goal by the end of it all and hit some stretch goals to unlock some good promo cards too.
For sure. And it's not just an expansion, but it's a soundtrack. What can you tell us about the soundtrack, Dan?
The soundtrack we had made by a gentleman named Caden L. Wellborn. He's a local person in my area who is a very good composer, makes a lot of great fantasy music, it's sci-fi music and whatnot. And I approached him a few years ago about, whether or not he'd be interested in doing kind of a tavern-themed soundtrack. And he was very eager about it. So we, talked about it, and I gave him all the material to take a look at, and he crafted songs. He made a great CD. It's got 19 songs on it. And each of the songs is represented by one of the cards in the song deck. Or there's a few extra, you get a few song cards that are exclusives with the CD. And those songs are, also on the CD. And then there's another one for the song card that comes with the Silver Lady coin. But, each of those songs, has a place in the history of the world of Destiny. And so we just thought it'd be fun to have, like a soundtrack that brought the cards, brought the song deck to life and made you feel like you're sitting in a tavern. So each song is done like it was some different, tavern entertainers troupe, some of them have lyrics, but most of them are just instrumental. And it's just great music that you can, play Tavern Masters by or role play to or whatever, anything you need a tavern setting.
Awesome. So with the song deck you keep talking about, is that something like if I play a card, I go to a certain song on the CD, or how does that work?
Oh, no, it's just the song. Like, for instance, there's a song called the Champions Anthem, and it's a song card you can play in the game. But on the CD, there's the song, the Champions Anthem. So, like, if you were listening to the CD and were to look at what song was playing, I'm like, oh, that's what it sounds like.
So more of a reference, and then it also plays into the game as well?
Yeah, so it doesn't tie into the game in that you have to listen to the song for the effects of the game or for the effects of the song. It's just, so you can actually hear what it sounds like, and so you can have some good background ambiance.
Sounds like a pretty cool and a solid expansion, so that's awesome. Now, per se, somebody, they got sidetracked doing something else, doing their laundry, or they fell asleep or whatnot. It wouldn't be because of you or this great expansion or soundtrack. It'd be because of me and my podcast. What we're at the going into the second week of September, and since the first of the year, we've already released 148 episodes. So sometimes they get a little tired of hearing me drone on and on, and they get sidetracked or get doing something else, so they don't catch everything. So now you have their full attention, Dan. Why should they take a chance on Tavern Masters, Dockside Expansion, and soundtrack, especially with all the other great games that are out there on the Kickstarters currently?
Well, because Tavern Masters is not only it's a great filler game because it doesn't take long to play. It's easy to get out and easy to put back up, so you can play it when you're waiting for your friends to come over for your D&D campaign or something. But it's also a great gateway game too. I've had so many people who have come to me and said, "Oh, my spouse, they don't really like games that much. They're just not into them or whatever." But I managed to talk them into playing Tavern Masters, and now they're making me play it all the time. Like, what have you done to me? And all I have to say is that I'm just glad that it helps people find the game more, because I've heard some people like it because it's a fun game. But then people who aren't even usually into games still kind of look at it as kind of like a puzzle to solve, or kind of, like they're putting it together to see how much they can get out of it, since it's an engine builder. It's, it has some of the same appeal as like a phone app might to some people. But I love it because you just really feel like you're in the fantasy setting. And I mean, so many great fantasy campaigns start in a tavern, but like, what if you're the guy that's, watching all those people come in and out the door, like... It's a fun way to experience it, and it's just a great engine builder. So there's lots of great reasons to get it. The game itself is available in game stores all over the place. It's in full distribution worldwide. So, if you don't have a copy of Tavern Masters, you can probably find it at any of your local friendly game stores, today. Or, well, maybe not today because it's, the evening and I'm sure they're closed. But, generally speaking, they should have it. And if not, we have it on sale on our web store as well right now. During the campaign, we have, each of the different expansions, or we have a whole bundle pack that you can get for a good deal too, along with like the metal coin sets from our previous campaign. So, there's lots of great reasons to take a chance on any game, but I really think that this game is going to be worth your time and something that you're going to enjoy, pulling out of the cabinet all the time to play. because it's just so easy and so accessible.
So you say that they can go to your web store and stuff. Does that mean that it's not available as an add-on or as a pledge to get the base game on this campaign?
Right. Well, the Dockside itself, we still have to finish up some more art for it and whatnot, which is part of what the funding is for. We still have some art to go, and that'll take some time. And then, of course, we'll have to have it manufactured, and that takes time too. And then it'll have to be shipped over from China. We're having Watts Games manufacture it. They did a great job on our original game. So, we wanted them to follow up so that everything matched up and was all the same colors and everything. You don't want your expansion not matching up. So, but it's not going to be shipping out until probably around May of next year is the estimate. But we want people to enjoy Tavern Masters now. So, I mean, if they were to pledge for Tavern Masters as well, then they're going to have to wait, a half a year or more to get it when they could just order it at the same time, and just, have it in a couple of days. I mean, it doesn't take but usually 2-3 days to get it from, at least anywhere in the U.S., and not that much more to the rest of the world. So, I'd rather than being enjoyed in Tavern Masters that whole time, waiting for the Dockside to come in. It just seemed more accessible that way, too, and it keeps confusion down. We've had some, previous things go on during shipping and fulfillment where it's just, all the different options we were offering just got very confusing for the people that were handling fulfillment before. Luckily, this time we've been able to get Ship Naked to sign us on. So they're going to be handling fulfillment for us from now on, and I know they do a good job. I've had plenty of campaigns from other people I've pledged on that I've gotten goods shipped to me from Ship Naked. It's always been, quality effort, and they know much more about shipping and international shipping than I do. So I'm sure they'll do a much better job. But that way, again. That way people can have their copies now and be playing them and waiting, for the other ones to come in.
Well, there you go. You don't get that every day. Usually you have to go ahead and back the game and then wait for it and the expansion and everything to come at the same time with the Kickstarter. So that's awesome. So you go ahead and go to your local game store or go to the web shop like you talked about, and we'll leave links in the show notes so you can start playing Tavern Masters, and then come May or whenever they're ready to go, you can get your expansion and add a little bit more variety to the game, I guess.
Yeah.
So awesome. And we'll make sure we leave all the links in the show notes or whatnot so people can go ahead and check that out. And I know you've been really busy, so you haven't necessarily been able to check out the podcast, but the next portion of our podcast, Dan, is called Adventures in Application Acquisition, where we talk about an app, be it for your cell phone, your tablet, your computer, or even a video game. And it doesn't even necessarily have to do with tabletop board gaming or running a tavern yourself. It could be anything, just an app you use a lot of. Is there an app you use a lot of that we can talk about for a moment, Dan?
Let's see. As far as apps that I use a lot of, I'm not really entirely sure. There's a couple of fantasy games I like playing whenever I have the chance, but I use my Sudoku a lot. But speaking of apps, actually, we're working on the Tavern Masters app right now, where you'll be able to play it either on your Android or your iPhone or your PC, and you should be able to play it with other friends on their devices as well, like linking across devices.
Well, that's pretty cool. Is that going to be part of the Kickstarter, or is that something on the side?
It's not part of the Kickstarter, although it is part of the reason the Kickstarter took longer to get together, because we wanted to make it part of the Kickstarter, but app development just took a bit longer. So we're still kind of in the works getting it developed, but it's coming along. We're supposed to be looking at some of the first test phases now to test out the initial system, make sure it's working right. So that's really exciting. I mean, I know virtually nothing about setting up apps myself, which is why I'm having people who do, take care of it for me. But yeah, I mean, it's good. I think apps are great, and they're a great way to, have some fun at your fingertips when you're busy doing other stuff and you got a break, And so if I can bring Tavern Masters into that world to where people can just, sit for 15 minutes, 20 minutes when they're on the lunch break and play a quick game of Tavern Masters while they're, eating their soup or something. I mean, that's awesome.
So will there be a Kickstarter for that too? Or what are your plans with the Tavern Masters, the app?
With the app, I mean, as far as I can tell, our plan is just to go ahead and release it when it's ready, maybe do a pre-order or something like that for people, to give them a chance to kind of, get it together and whatnot, and know that it's coming, for market awareness kind of thing. But in general, I mean, we're just kind of trying to take care of it out of our own pockets and just kind of give it to the world when it's ready.
So yeah, it might be too early to tell, but do you anticipate it being a free app or a paid app?
Well, the plan is to make the basic app free, and then there will probably be like a one-time fee for expansions if you want the expansions. But we're also looking at a subscription option where you might be able to pay something like, for instance, probably $2.99 a month or something to that effect, and have access to all of the expansions that are currently out, including possibly some extra like subscriber-only cards or something like that. So, and there's going to be multiple levels to the game too, in that not only will we be able to play the game, normally, whether you're playing solo or against AI or against, some other friends or something. But every time you play, you'll earn a little bit of meta gold and a little bit of possibly some gems. And then these meta gold you can use to run your, what I'm calling Tavern Keeper mode, where every day that you log on to the game, you'll get like 3 random patrons that you'll get to pick one to have in your tavern. And then you can use your meta score of your meta gold, basically, which is essentially your meta score for playing. You can use that to then purchase like either goods or hire staff for a week to your tavern for like 7 days. That will cause the patrons to give you money, thus adding to your meta score. So it's kind of like getting a way to take your scoreboard and play a game with it. Well, and we're also looking at having a tabletop assistant mode, where if you're playing the actual game, like with friends, like using the card version, you can like put in to the list what cards you have in your tavern, so you can calculate your gold for you. Like when you count your till at the end of the round or whatever, you could just press a little button to calculate how much gold you get.
Okay.
Yeah, just an easy way to count it up.
Yeah, so everything, that sounds most excellent or whatnot. So mine is coming there to your hometown to stalk you and whatnot, or to keep up with the Tavern Masters, anything you have going on, the expansions or the app or anything like that. How would people go about keeping up with you, Dan, and what you have going on?
Well, we have our website, which is danchrisgames.com. Although it gets updated infrequently at the moment because there's just too many things to do for me, and basically I just have Phil helping me with the social media and whatnot. My friend Phil, he helps me run the Facebook and things like that. But we're active on Facebook. We have Twitter. We have an Instagram account. We have a Pinterest account with images for some of our games. And you can always find my email address. Or you can write us on Facebook. You can find my email address on our website if you want to message me directly. It might take a couple of days for me to get back to you because I've got so many emails I got to go through. But that being said, and other than that, we had a newsletter, but then there was some issues that came up earlier this year with all of the stuff. I'm not exactly sure all the details of it, but so we have to repopulate our newsletter. And before we do that, we're trying to look at different ways to set it up, see if there's anything better we can do with it to kind of evolve it from what it was. But we should have another newsletter up again soon.
Okay, so they can follow along with that. So that's awesome. Yeah, as long as if you give me those links, I'll make sure I go ahead and put them in the show notes so people don't have to type it in. They can just click on over and come at least definitely check out Tavern Masters, Dockside Expansion, and soundtrack that's on Kickstarter through the 1st of October, as well as going to get your own copy of Tavern Masters, either from Dan Chris. You said it was danchris.com?
DanChrisGames.com. So that's DANNKRISSGAMES.com.
Okay, you can do that, or it sounds like you can go to your local game store and do that as well, and we'll leave links in the show notes or whatnot. But we really appreciate you coming on Getting Geeky with Game Relief with us tonight, Dan. We really appreciate it.
We really appreciate you having me. This is an honor to be here. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no problem, definitely. Well, that was a great interview. I love that. I hope you did too. If you did, make sure you go ahead and go ahead and give us a rating and review in Kickstarter. That always helps. not on Kickstarter. You know what I'm talking about? iTunes. Yeah, give us a rating and review on iTunes so other great people can find this great show. It won't just be you listening anymore. And make sure you share it with a friend, somebody out there that needs to find Kickstarter, but they don't want to know about all the games on there because their wallet isn't as big as yours maybe. It's small like mine. Then bring them to our show, as there's only a few great games that we go over each week. And in the meantime, because it's our least favorite time, your least favorite time, in the meantime, until we see you again, go ahead and get geeky, stay geeky, and bring others into the geek fold. This is Game Relief, and I'm signing out.
Gamer Leaf levels up. Tune in next week to see if Gamer Leaf's luck holds up.